What's up, guys? What's happening out there? I hope we have some late nighters hanging out with us. I'm Chip. He's not Seth. He's Mike Griffith, as you know. This is the Chip and Griff Show. What do you think about that? That's what we're going to call it. If you're a sponsor out there and you want to throw some money our way and sponsor this show, BJ Sweeney would love to hear from you. Mike would love to hear from you. I wouldn't. Look, y'all, Kelly Metters Grizzard there's a familiar name. Hello, Kelly. How are you doing? This actually won't be the spot that we're in. We're generally, I think we're going to be a lunchtime deal on this.
We're
once
flexible,
we get going.
You know what? If somebody wants us to go late, I'm flexible.
You tell you, that would ultimately be up to a sponsor, wouldn't it? Yeah, whatever they want. But, hey, look, hey, guys, you look tired. Thanks, Kevin. We appreciate that. So we can see your comments here just like you can when I'm doing my Towers Take or when Mike is doing one of his Facebook stand-ups. We just completed coverage of practice number 22, if I'm not mistaken.
Not just football practice tonight.
Yeah, we got to see the Red Coat Band practice over at, I guess they call it Red Coat Field at UGA Intramurals Field. The reason we went over there is because Kirby wanted to do his post-practice over there because he wanted to go over there and thank the band. It was pretty cool to get out. It wasn't great sitting on a bus for 45 minutes waiting for getting over there and waiting for Kirby to get there. But I mean, otherwise it was pretty cool. I thought Kirby was really incredibly relaxed, and for him, he was pretty revealing in terms of what he was talking about. Don't you think?
Yeah, I thought Kirby was in his element. You could tell he enjoyed interacting with the band. The students were they just roared and cheered for him.
Everybody loves Kirby.
They were saying that's my dad. No, they were arguing whose dad he was.
Yeah.
But you could tell Kirby really enjoyed. Someone's asking why the picture is reversed. Here's why. Because there's two of us and one camera. Nobody's behind it. So we got to turn the camera towards us like we were doing a selfie. If there was somebody here, we'd turn it around, but then we wouldn't be able to see the screen. Of course, if we couldn't see the screen, we couldn't see your comments. But getting back to why I think Kirby was relaxed, because he was in his element. And, I thought Kirby enjoyed interacting with the students. They enjoy him. So I thought it was worth it. It was kind of a pain. We were on the bus for almost an hour waiting. But it was neat to see Kirby Smart in that element, and certainly something I'm sure that those band members will remember.
Oh, they definitely enjoyed it, and it reminded me. I kind of miss the old days. Remember when you used to catch the coach as he came off the field? That was a coach coming off the field, get a few remarks from coach, then you pick out whoever it is you want to talk to after practice. That's kind of dating me and you too, because I know you were around when that was kind of the way it worked. That's not the way it works anymore. We came back and got a couple of players availability, and the bottom line is we're sort of winding it down now. I mean, they have another practice tomorrow. They'll have a walkthrough largely on Thursday, and then the season opener Saturday against Austin Peay. And I don't think there's any great trepidation or anything about opening against Austin Peay, but there's a great deal of intrigue, while we're using those I words, about what Georgia's going to look like. In that first game, there's I guess, Griff, we'll just start here on the quarterbacks, because that's the main topic du jour every day regarding Georgia. So we'll touch on that quickly, because I know you guys have read about it a lot. Everybody has their opinions, and we'll see how it unfolds.
We'll give our
Saturday.
opinions, and then we'll let them ask us.
Yeah,
how about we do it?
We'll do that. And then, hey, look, we've got so this new format, guys. We have some time, so we're not going to rush. That's why we kind of waited to do this at the end. So we're going to take a lot of your questions, and we're going to try to cover a lot of different things, and then get out of here within a half hour, hopefully, because he and I both do need rest and food and sustenance and all those things that you do too. But as for the quarterbacks, you and I were sort of chuckling yesterday because it seems like Georgia's working so hard to not distinguish a starter, distinguish a first string versus a second string. But, I mean, it's really clear, and at the end of the day, I mean, Jake sort of accidentally or purposely, sort of
accidentally
revealed
on
it.
purpose, maybe.
Yeah, one of those. And, and Justin Fields is clearly working with the twos, and he's clearly working with the one. The real mystery, though, I mean, is how are they going to deploy these guys, on Saturday against Austin Peay, and would that be the same way they deployed them, the next week against South Carolina? What are your thoughts on that?
I think Kirby wants to keep it really, really fluid, because I do think it's kind of a temperamental thing. You want to see how the game's going. I mean, look, here's the deal. you need to use this Austin P game as a warm-up for South Carolina. If Jake Fromm goes out there in precision-like fashion, tears through Austin P for 3 quarters, then Kirby's seen enough and go ahead and put the freshman in. But if the offense is missing a little bit, he's going to want Jake to get those repetitions. I understand that everybody wants to see Justin Fields. I understand that Kirby wants to develop Justin Fields. They want to have 2 quarterbacks, but make them, as Kirby would say, keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah.
And the number one thing is to, number one, win the game, but also number 2, make sure that Jake Fromm in your offense has that precision-like timing and confidence going into week 2. So I think we'll see Jake Fromm in there as long as it takes for Kirby to be satisfied that, yes, this offense does have some timing and the proper synchronization that it will need the following weekend.
Synchronicity? I don't know. Were
Synchronicity.
the police right about that? I don't know.
Yeah. So that's my thought as far as how much we'll see. I really do believe it's fluid. I think the head coach will make the call, and he'll be the one to tell Chaney, go ahead and get Fields warmed up.
Yeah, and, so that's, I think everybody knows that. And we got a lot of comments on here. You're right. I missed who had the last comment. I mean, I think one of the most complicated things about this offense for Jim Chaney is just kind of figuring out where to go with the ball. I mean, you have a lot of options here and a lot of things you want to see.
We're getting ahead of ourselves now. That's
we are.
Part 2. That's identity.
There's a lot, but the other one was one of our fine listeners here was talking about Terry Godwin, and he just flat out said clearly he's reading DawgNation because he said Terry Godwin ain't going to play, and Kirby didn't say that today. He said questionable, and he didn't practice again today, but I think you and I are both in agreement. Why would you test it? Of all the receivers Georgia has, that's the one guy you kind of know what you got.
Well, and the injury that he has, a calf strain, and listen, I know a calf strain doesn't sound like much. You wouldn't think it's that debilitating, but I've had that injury, and it is one of the most painful injuries you can have. There's 3 different levels of calf strain, and for it to be an injury that's keeping Terry Godwin off the field, it's got to be a 2nd or 3rd level, and you can barely walk. You can barely put weight on. You'd be amazed how much work your calf does for you. Part of the reason I think Terry has this injury is he's probably trying to come back from that knee, and obviously, these athletes they're just, I compare them to the German sports cars. They're just so finely tuned, these quick twitch muscles, and everything is built up to the max, and these ligaments have so much work to do, and Terry's one of these guys with no body fat. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's all muscle. So, and when one part of your body's injured, another part tries to compensate. So for the calf, I agree with the person that commented, forgive me, I lost your name there, but absolutely.
A lot of people on there. They're flying through pretty fast. So thanks for hanging out, guys.
Rest this guy against Austin Peay. And I'll go one further, Chip. If you don't need him against South Carolina, don't play him there either, because you're going to need this. This could be a 15-game season. This is a guy you're going to need down the stretch.
And the bottom line, I mean, it's not like Georgia's hurting for receivers or anything.
Right.
Now, I do believe that, Godwin is probably underappreciated, really in the Bulldog Nation, but certainly in the nation, period, as just a dependable target all the way around. So let's make no bones about that. But between Demetrius Robertson coming on, Riley Ridley, McCole Hardman, Akil Crumpton has gotten all kinds of buzz in the preseason. Your guy that we've had a lot of fun with, but you've really enjoyed writing about James Cook. Yeah. I've seen a lot of comments about him. I mean, Kirby talked about him today. I mean, you got to kind of get a look at that guy and see what he can do, because based on what you're seeing in practice, it's some pretty incredible things. The tight ends need to be fed. Jim Chaney's over there, and you got tailbacks last time I checked, which are pretty good. And talking about those injuries and favoring legs and everything, Zamir White was obviously one of the big losses in preseason camp, and there was kind of a lot of controversy about him covering punts. We haven't talked about that yet, and I talked to an orthopedist kind of after all that happened, because I was fanning the flames a little bit myself. It wasn't really just me personally, but I mean, I had a lot of people, a lot of those McGill Society people who were watching said, "What the heck have we got our 5-star tailback doing covering punch?" But it's a very common ploy under Kirby Smart, and according to that orthopedist, he was not at any more risk covering punts than he was running toss sweeps out of the backfield.
Well, And here's the thing. And I'm guilty of it, covering a lot of football. You see a 5-star guy and there's like this aura around him, like, oh, there he goes. At Georgia, they got 21 of them.
Yeah.
Everybody is somebody. And
they can't play them all.
When you step on this campus, the stars are gone. And Kirby has made that point. He doesn't give a darn what your stars were in high school, number one. Number two, Zamir White was trying to get on the bus, Chip.
Yeah.
And a lot of people
and he wasn't assured of that.
No, and a lot of people just can't believe it. They say, oh, Mike, you're crazy. Surely I said, look, what are you going to do? Put him on a pedestal and go, look, there's our 5-star running back. He's not one of the top 4 right now, but there he is. Don't he look pretty in a uniform?
Yeah.
You can't bring just 5 running backs. He was competing to get on the bus. I mean, Brian Harriet and Elijah Holyfield, DeAndre Swift and James Cook, these guys are competing for touches, and you've got to have a role beyond being a backup tailback. That's why Zamir White was out there, and you heard Kirby say, and some people got upset that Anthony Dasher, who I've got a lot of respect for, he's one of our writers
Been
on
around
the beat,
a long time,
that he asked him that question. But here's what you don't understand. Dasher did Kirby a favor, because then Kirby was able to explain, hey, guys, Derrick Henry was on special teams, and DeAndre Swift.
Sony
Michel. If Dash doesn't ask that question, Kirby can't explain why the kid was out there.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Georgia fans liked hearing, like, oh, okay, this wasn't just some fly-by-night idea. This is standard procedure at Georgia for your starters and your young, talented players to try and earn their way on the bus by being a part of special teams.
This is fun, Mike, doing this in this format, is seeing all the comments come flying by. And so what's happening a lot, you can tell these people read their DawgNation content.
Yeah, they do.
And so you got one guy asking a question, of us, like one of them was about Kyrus Jackson, but, a couple of people later, somebody else answers it for him and says, it's still questionable. He's got a hammy. And, I think Kyrus Jackson, that's disappointing. A true freshman, early enrollee who really made some, turned some heads in the spring has been, how his hamstring wide receivers. And look, guys, here's the deal on wide receivers. I think they have 18 of them out there. I mean, including walk-ons. And they have some pretty good walk-ons.
That's a lot to be rostered.
That is. And really, you talk about getting on the bus. I think Kirby might have answered this directly, or one of the receivers did. No, I think it was one of the receivers, maybe Jason Stanley, one of them. Generally, they only travel 7 or 8 wide receivers. So you've got, if you're not in that top 6,
I think Tyler
Simmons might have been the one that said that. If you're not in the top 6, you're not assured of anything. So you better be playing some special teams, and that's what's going on there. See some questions here coming up about Otis Reese, J.J. Holloman. J.J. Holloman's one of those guys I would say that's on that bubble. Kyrus Jackson at this point hadn't been able to practice for the last couple. He's probably out. He's probably, unless he can get back, and I think he'll try to play against Austin Peay. But he's probably not going to make that trip because there's just not enough room on the bus.
So you wonder about a game like this, and you're kind of playing in nobody's school, a game you're going to win. For guys like Chip and I think a lot of these people that are taking the time to watch this tonight, we're watching the competition within the team, because this is a lot of guys' opportunity to audition for that trip to South Carolina. Again, trying to get on the bus. What did you do? What you did on film will be broken down. What will you do with your opportunity when it comes against Austin Peay? Now, you've had the spring drills. You've had fall camp to open Coach Smart's eye and the staff's eyes. But what are you going to do under the lights? What are you going to do on game day? And so this is another opportunity for some of these young players and some of the returning players. At a lot of schools, Chip, we always just assume, well, how good's the team going to be? Let's see who they've got coming back. Oh, well, if they have more people coming back, there's sometimes the faulty conclusion, well, they must be better. And that's not always the case. What if the guy that's coming in for that position is better than the guy he's replacing? We've seen that play out before. And the way Georgia's recruited with this number 1 recruiting class, I think some of these guys like Tyson Campbell, like James Cook, I think these guys can be an upgrade over the guys who were in their role last year.
Yeah, that was some really exciting information we got post-practice, and your questions are coming here so fast. I'm going to try to...
Chip's going on the tablet here.
On the iPad, because we can't hardly keep you up here. And by the way, talking about, right now we've got it flipped around so everything looks backwards to you. That's not going to be the case. We actually have a really nice setup. It's just not ready right now. We actually got us a little bit of a studio situation that we're going to use this fall. Some of our Cox brothers and sisters have set us up with something. and we're hoping to.
Are you having trouble seeing the comments up there?
Well, no, they're going by so fast. So what's happening? I don't want to reset
Oh,
that,
yeah, I got you.
Now I can go back. I can go back down here. Well,
all right. Well, now Chip's watching. Hey, Chip, how are you? Wait a minute, I'm getting confused here.
Yeah. How about that? That's.
Oh, this is deep.
Yeah.
You're getting deep here.
Technology, baby. It has changed a lot. Here's a good question. I want to answer this one from Tyler Stanfield. Wants to know, how does Gibbs look? I'll tell you how Gibbs look. Gibbs looks like he's probably going to be on that bus. I mean, today Kirby Smart talked about him, and what's really interesting is the star position overall. But D-Lo, as referred to, D'Angelo Gibbs, that's his nickname now, is working alongside Walter Grant. So basically what you have at the star position, it's not a one-trick pony at star. Sometimes you go heavy there with a linebacker. Sometimes you go light with another DB. And it looks like Walter Grant is actually getting a lot of those snaps, the outside linebacker dropping back there as the heavy D. And then you've got D'Angelo Gibbs and who's that? William Poole, who is pretty much a corner by trade, working as the coverage, the star DB, as he was referring to him. But I really liked catching Kirby like that. He just seems so much more relaxed and so much more willing to share. Now, some of that may have to do with who the opponent is this week. He's not too worried about what Austin Peay thinks, but he was really, really wide open about that. So we learned that. We learned that Tyson Campbell is definitely in the hunt over there at the other corner, but his name came up after Mark Webb and Eric Stokes. And I think, based on reading between the lines, what I gathered on that, Tyson Campbell, he is, what he said, fast, very fast. He's all about fast. But there is it's the hardest position, in my opinion, Mike, to make the transition from high school, besides quarterback, to make the transition from high school to defensive back, because there's just so much more involved. They're trying to trick you. It's not just straight man or just stand back there as a center fielder in some kind of zone situation. They're doing all kinds of different things. You got to know what they're doing. But Tyson Campbell, it sounds like he has shown himself to be everything that everybody thought he was when he was number 1, number 2 ranked cornerback in America coming out of Miami Plantation, Florida.
Oh, you know what? I just realized I made a mistake in a story I got from him. I better fix this.
Oh,
he was a state champ in the 100 and 200 meters as well. So, I mean, when we talk about speed, we're talking about blazing speed. And as Kirby said earlier in fall camp, when you've got that kind of speed, that's catch-up speed. That's where you can make up for some mistakes. And, of course, we know, Georgia's got a lot of speed on the field. I think the other day Kirby said they had 9 or 10 guys over 20 miles per hour. Georgia's got these GPS trackers in their shoulder pads. A lot of programs have got that type of technology now. Georgia's one of them. So Kirby and his staff are able to track how many yards a guy goes in practice. How hard is this guy working? Their top speed, their average speed.
That's fascinating to me. And they review those. Kirby, you can tell he reviews those stats every practice. He loves to cite everybody's GPS numbers. And you talk about to put it in perspective. I think the fastest number, the highest number Georgia got in miles per hour in a game last year might have been 23 miles an hour by McCole Hardman. Mm-hmm. I know of the backs, Chubb put up the fastest number, 22 miles per hour on his touchdown run against Kentucky, and Sony Michel, who's generally thought of as the faster guy, was jealous about it because he had put up a 21 and a half or so on one of his runs. So suffice it to say, and you're just coming from covering Tennessee, man, there is speed all over the field for Georgia right now, speed and size.
Yeah, Georgia just looks like a different team. I mean, they look like a championship team in terms of the depth, the cut of these guys, the size of these linemen. These offensive linemen are they're bigger than some of the NFL lines. And the thing is, there's no guts hanging over those belts. I mean, these guys are chiseled and they're cut. I mean, this is a good-looking football team that passes the eyeball test.
All right, you want to take some questions here first?
Sure.
Brandon Pratt wants to know, do you think Fields should be QB1 week 1? Go ahead and slap yourself right now.
Yeah, no.
No, we don't think that. Leesburg in the house. Hey, Eddie Singleton. Otis Reese, heard some compliments about him. He's another guy that's getting some hard looks at that star position. How is LeCount doing? James Cook will put up a 23.3, says James McKay.
You know, I want to comment on Richard LeCount.
Yeah.
That was a really interesting opportunity to watch a coach and a player interact. And they don't always interact publicly, but it told you something about the relationship that Kirby had with Richard LeCount, that he was wanting and willing to challenge him publicly.
Yeah.
Not only did he challenge him publicly, but then he gave LeCount the opportunity to answer the challenge publicly.
Yeah.
And this is all, listen, Kirby's
That's
smart.
the game behind the game, right?
I was going to say, Kirby doesn't do anything by accident. All these guys that they choose to send here, there's a reason behind it. It's not like Kirby just says, I'll take whoever you want. Yeah. There's a reason that the head coach is sending. There's a reason that David Marshall and Monty Rice were the two players that were sent out to talk to the media tonight. Oh, yeah. I don't necessarily know that reason.
How'd that go? I didn't hang out there with you today.
Well, I have a story coming out tomorrow. They did release some information. I'll save it for tomorrow. There's a reason, just like there's a reason why Jake Fromm didn't appear with the media until yesterday. And I can tell you, there's a lot of people in the SEC going, you know, Jake Fromm's your quarterback. Bring him to SEC Media Days. Everybody, and somebody said, well, I can't vote him first team. He's not even announced the starter yet.
That's kind of the end.
I can't put him on the Golden Arm watch list if we don't know he's the starter. Now, you and I and Kirby and everybody on the Georgia team knows that. But if you're that guy in Baltimore, Maryland, that's saying, oh, I heard Georgia's got a great freshman quarterback and they're competing. Well, they are, but they aren't. Justin Fields was competing for opportunities. He wasn't competing for the starting job. You're not going to bench Jake Fromm unless there's an injury because of the leadership that Jake's shown and because of how far he took the team. Now, Justin did well enough, though, to warrant an extended look and more opportunities in games, but not necessarily start, Chip.
Yeah, no, and there's so many questions hitting us right here. Now, people talking about defense.
McGee is out with a broken bone in his foot. We don't know for how long.
Yeah, they're definitely. I could see him possibly coming back for South Carolina because based on the timeline, he apparently played with this last year. Yeah. But a lot of that will also have to do with how everybody else looks in the opener against Austin Peay. If you look pretty good right there, then you might feel safe on taking on Jake Bentley in South Carolina in week 2. That's a big deal to both me and Mike, going and playing that quarterback on the road in week 2. But if they don't look good, and you're a little bit questionable about what you're getting at the corner or the star, because Tyreek McGee was working at both and played a lot last year, then maybe you can bring him back. He played with that. It's a 5th metatarsal crack fracture of the pinky toe, as it were, and you're not going to worry too much about that.
Saw a question about if James Cook will return kicks. I was listening, Chip. I know you're doing a story on special teams for tomorrow.
That's right.
I didn't hear James Cook's name as a return man, and I don't know why you would. I mean, the guy was one of the last freshmen to report. Remember, he didn't come in until July. He wasn't here in the first semester, and he wasn't a spring guy. So, and you threw a lot at James, and then when you saw his talents, they probably threw even more. He has, without a doubt, been the most talked about player on offense in fall drills. And, Chip, you pointed it out. When these defensive players get asked about James Cook, they love talking about James Cook.
You see their faces light up. A lot of times there's the quotes that everybody says in their stories, and that's why we do video a lot of time. Then there's the looks you see on their faces, and it's kind of like you say James Cook, and the first thing everybody says, they're like, yeah, James Cook. I mean, they just light up.
And then they go, and then someone said the other day, tell us about James Cook and Justin Fields. The guy's like, oh yeah, Cook, man, he's great. Oh my gosh, Fields, he's doing a good job too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of the way. It's that you're surprised because listen, against Aaron and 7-7, Justin Fields, is poetic. I mean, the ball comes off his hand. The arm strength is unbelievable. You know that he can run the ball really well. But that's different than flying the airplane or flying the jet, and you've got to be able to see things. And Jake Fromm just has an uncanny ability and feel for the game for a guy that was a true freshman. And Kirk Herbstreit talked to me about this today. The things that Jake did at the end of the year, you just don't see from freshmen. So no offense to Justin Fields, and he may ultimately be the next Cam Newton. Yeah. But right now, you got a guy flying an airplane, flying the jet, that knows where all the controls are at, that's proven that he can land it in a storm.
Here's a perfect example, I think, on the Jake Fromm thing. Two points on this. One, As Kirk Herbstreit has told you, Greg McElroy told me it, these guys that really break it down, former quarterbacks, they love David Green. They break this down and they look at it, to the nth degree. They have access to practice and game video that we don't even see the coaches' copies, and they're just about Jake Fromm's decision making was otherworldly in terms of being a freshman, especially toward the end of the year. The other thing in practice the other day, I thought this was kind of telling, but they're sitting there and they're two-spotting. They love to call it two-spotting. And so you got Jake Fromm on one side and you got Justin Fields on the other. And in this particular drill, I hadn't seen it much in the preseason, they were throwing these timing patterns. There were nothing. It's not a pattern that they'll probably use in the game, but they were just having the wideouts run straight down the sideline, kind of full speed, and the instruction for James Coley was, let me see you bring it up and over and drop it in the breadbasket, okay? So Fromm's doing this on the right, and Fields is doing this on the left, starting receivers on both sides, and then they flipped them. And Jake Fromm, maybe it was just the 4 minutes or whatever I got to sit there and watch it to 3 minutes. I don't think one of his guys even had to slow down an iota or move their hands at all. They were just perfect, just dropping in there one after another. Fields was kind of all over the place. Now, I wasn't charting it, and I'm not going to chart a drill like that. That's a drill. But you could just see the difference. And I mean, that matters, the timing and everything on it. And I think Justin Fields will get all that eventually. Now, that's not his thing. If you're looking for a guy who's going to sit right here and go 30 yards and try to, break something.
Put a laser beam on.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Fields is probably going to be your guy. But the times that you actually need that to happen is not very often in a game. Basically you need to hit the open guy and you need to hit him on time and in stride. And Jake Fromm looks like he's in excellent position to do that right now.
He really does. I saw a comment about Jake's comment the other day, and I've talked to some coaches and friends about it, and I'll bet you, Chip, upon reflecting, a lot of people said, well, Jake just slipped up yesterday when he said he can't wait to see who's next to him on the first drive. I think Jake Fromm let everybody know he's starting.
I'm not sure I 100% believe it, but Mike believes he knew exactly
absolutely.
what he was doing.
Are you kidding me?
He's a smart guy.
He is a really smart.
He knows what he's doing.
And he's a college guy, and he probably walked out of there laughing his butt off, going, ha, 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 I found a way to get that out. And I'm sure Kirby saw that and probably laughed too.
Yeah.
Because they understand. I mean, here's the thing, and here's all. I get what Kirby's trying to do, and I've taken some heat on Twitter because I said it was ridiculous that Kirby wouldn't just say, yes, he's starting. It's the worst kept secret in Athens.
Yeah.
But I understand what Kirby's trying to do. He's trying to send a message to the team that I don't care who you are. Even if you're Jake Fromm, I'm not going to tell you you're a starter. And that, sometimes coaches do things just to do things, and I understand that. But from the perspective of the national media and people looking in on Georgia right now, it kind of creates a false perception. If you don't follow Georgia closely, if you don't read DawgNation, and you hear that Kirby Smart hasn't named a starting quarterback, you think, well, there's another quarterback controversy in the SEC. No, there's not. This isn't Alabama, okay? Nick Saban's got a real mess on his hands.
He does.
He has got a real problem and a real potential for his locker room to be divided. Georgia does not have that.
Not right now. And I think that's where Herbstreit's coming in, and you and I talked about that. Next year now, you could have a much more of a controversy.
Let's just take it one game at a time, Chip.
But you don't have one right now. No. But next year you could, because that's the price what you have going on with Alabama right now. I mean, toward the end of the year, Tua Tagovailoa obviously had shown them a lot in practice. There was a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on, But the bottom line is they got him in the game and he took care of business. Now you fast forward to this season. Who's going to play?
As long as Jake Fromm keeps winning, he's fine. Just keep winning. Don't fall behind in the game.
Flying the plane.
That's it.
You're going to be fine. But and then there's always the thing is there's always the possibility of injury. There's always the possibility of Jake not playing well. I guess there was maybe 2 times last year that he didn't play it great. He actually didn't play great, though he played really, really well in the times that mattered against Notre Dame. And then there was the Auburn game, which I don't fault him at all because he's running for his life in that one. His line wasn't able to block well. But other than that, he played almost perfectly. There wasn't a whole lot that he did wrong. So you don't mess with that. It's just there's too much at stake.
Well, there's going to be more on Jake Fromm this year. Sony Michel and Nick Chubb were both great, experienced running backs, guys you could rely on. Georgia was a very run-heavy football team. I think that Georgia will have to throw the ball more this year. I think Jake will have to do more, and I think that's why I think the receiving core needs to step up, as well as the tight ends. I mean, I think you're going to see Georgia a lot with the tight ends as well, Chip.
Let's talk some defense there. It's not really a great segue, but let's talk some defense.
Terrible segue.
Side of the ball. I'll work on those segues. Hey, it's the first game for us too, right?
You get hurt on those things if you drive around the cities, right?
My son rides one of those things. It's like, good Lord, the kid's incredible on that thing. Defensively, so for me, obviously the secondary is an area of concern, having to replace 3 of 5 stars. But for me, really, inside linebacker has been really interesting to me. So, I just did a piece. I hope you've been following the Georgia's Own Credit Union season preview. That's been a top 20 countdown that's going to end on Friday with the number one reason that Georgia will be in position to own the East.
And you've got them going undefeated. You've already predicted
I've already predicted Georgia to go undefeated. I can't believe I did. I've never done it any time in my history. Georgia's had some really good teams, and I've never picked them to go 12-0. But I broke it down, and, between who they're playing, the personnel, and where the games fall, Georgia will be favored in every game they play and should win it in the regular season. Now, I have not made a prediction on the postseason yet. I'm going to wait before I say how will they do against Alabama, or if it's, I expect it to be Alabama.
I don't expect it to be Alabama.
It could be Auburn. You think it's going to be Auburn?
I'm saying Alabama's done.
Yeah. So
I think this quarterback deal.
Strong on Alabama.
I think this quarterback deal is going to be like it's going to rot them from the inside out.
You think so?
I really do. I think it's a really divisive issue.
Yeah. So we'll see how that turns out. But for me, the linebacker position is extremely intriguing at Georgia because now Kirby goes back and forth about this, but every time we're out there, every time, he talks about they don't have a depth chart. They really have a depth chart, but he just doesn't communicate it that way. But, when they're out there going, give me the ones, and then 2 guys trot out there, and it's Tay Crowder and Natrez Patrick. So there's a couple of things we can read into that. Number one, Natrez Patrick ain't sitting out the first game, doesn't look like to me, we'll see. He hasn't declared one way or another.
Yeah, Kirby, I asked him specifically about Natrez and D'Angelo Gibbs, and he would not relinquish whether or not they were
handled internally, just like the defensive back
tonight.
That he talked about is unclear until his situation gets resolved in the courts, but it's going to be handled internally. I get that. That's fine. But obviously there's 4 guys that are going to play, and the first 2 that seem to be going in there is Tay Crowder and Natrez Patrick. What's fascinating about this to me is that's so different than what we saw from Georgia last year. Those guys are both big thumpers. 6'3", 240 pounds for Natrez Patrick, 6'3", 235, former tailback, and Tay Crowder. Now, what we may be seeing is they got a jumbo package and then go with those 2. You can mix and match. I wrote about in that Georgia's Own Credit Union is Monty Rice was my number 3 guy or 4, whatever it is, as Georgia's reason to own the East because he is the heir apparent to Roquan Smith in the will linebacker, smaller, fast guy. He's a sophomore and he's all that. But Monty is not necessarily working with the number 1 unit, and he said that right now. I think what we're seeing there is a mix and match. I think Georgia will use what they need to use based on the personnel they're going against this particular week. It's going to be an option team. That might be different than what we see against South Carolina, which, like everybody else, is going very pass-oriented spread. So I think that's what we're talking about, but generally we're talking about those 2, Crowder and Patrick, and we're talking about Juwan Taylor and Monty Rice, and then the other 2 guys that they brought in, I think are great. But you're just like we talked about in defensive backfield. Very difficult to come in as a true freshman. Right away, you're in the inside. You're supposed to be calling defenses. Guys are twice as big. Guys are twice as fast. They're coming from both directions. It's a difficult position. So I don't think Channing Tindall and Quay Walker are quite ready right now, though you probably see those guys on special teams.
I was going to say, they're going to make the bus. Those are some scary guys coming down special teams to hit you.
They are, and Channing Tindall has got both size and speed, and then Quay Walker is really, really big. I could see him transitioning to OLB or down lineman, defensive. You can do anything with that.
Yeah,
guy.
Kirby really likes those guys. He say they will really hit you. And yeah, they don't know everything they're doing, but boy, Kirby Smart gets excited when he talks about Channing and Quay. I mean, he really likes those guys. I mean, those are some big, strong, fierce, competitive guys. I kind of like the way Kirby's doing it with the committee when he talks about the front seven, because there are a lot of holes there. There are a lot of guys that were lost from last year's front seven. This is an area where the team's got to grow and get some competitive depth. This is, quite frankly, to me, the front seven is the area that could prevent Georgia from winning a national championship.
Once you get to the big daddies, for sure, because we saw that last year.
Yeah, I mean, when you got to stop Auburn, and when you got to stop Alabama, and who knows what's going to happen against Missouri on the road. As crazy as that sounds, that's a team that can light up the scoreboard. They got a great quarterback, so you just kind of wonder the South Carolina game. Bentley, obviously an experienced quarterback right now. You need that front seven. Chip, they key the defense, and I'm not sure that Kirby's settled right now. And also thought it was interesting tonight. I asked Kirby Smart about not doing a depth chart because that's something that Jim Harbaugh kind of did at Michigan.
I put that in my story, by the way, on the secondary. I included.
Did you?
His answer to your question. I don't know if you planned on doing it.
Okay, no, that's fine. I thought it was interesting. It was almost like, and I wouldn't say Kirby Smart apologized, but he had an apologetic tone when he said, "Guys, that wasn't planned." Yeah. That wasn't like it was planned.
It's not a big deal.
I think it was probably a deal where they're sitting in the office, they're doing the depth chart, and one guy says, "Hell, we don't know about here. We don't know about here." And Kirby says, "Guys, we can't have 9 either-ors. Yeah. Just don't even put one out." Yeah. But I think that's where Georgia's at this year. Mm-hmm. I think they've got 8 or 9 either-ors. And Kirby basically said, "Hey, I want it to be a level playing field. I want to know what the other guy's doing, and for it to be accurate," which means he doesn't have a whole lot of faith in Austin Peay's depth chart, clearly.
Right, yeah.
And he's not going to put something out that might be wrong. And I think that he really does have some questions about enough positions where he said, "You know what? Instead of doing 7 or 8 either-ors, let's just not do one."
Yeah.
And that was my take from Kirby. It wasn't like he was trying to be ugly to the media or necessarily keep everybody in the dark. I think Georgia it's that darn competitive. He talked about the offensive line yesterday. He said that was competitive as far as the rotation there. We know that he's talked about the front seven being a committee. We know he's talked about 3 different guys fighting for that corner spot opposite Baker. I think we feel good about who the starting safeties will be. Yeah. I think we knew who the quarterback will be. I wonder a little bit about the running rotation. And wide receiver, you can't really answer because we don't know who's we don't know who's dressing for the game. So you think about what a Georgia depth chart would look like had Kirby done one, and it probably would have been 11 or 12 either-ors, and we all probably would have jumped all over that. Chip.
I've kind of changed my tune a little bit in talking about it because like coming into this camp, probably my biggest concern would have been on the defensive line in the front seven.
So you're not as concerned?
I've kind of what I've seen is sort of allayed a lot of my concerns. I think Jay Hayes has made a huge difference. I mean, he's a guy that they like him at that defensive end, and he's a really good pass rusher, and that's the primary thing he does.
Atkins, you're the one that told me when I took this job, Big John Atkins was underrated. So what's your answer there?
Well, my answer there is Julian Rochester. He's come up twice to talk to us, that's always kind of a sign inside of a sign, that Kirby sends him up there. Apparently, Julian Rochester and he's different than you had with Big John Atkins. Now, John Atkins was a block of granite in there, and he did a good job of keeping those guys off of Roquan Smith. That was his main job. He's going to tie up blockers to keep Roquan free. Maybe a little bit different this year, according to Julian, when we talked to him the other day. I don't think I've even reported this yet. He was talking about that what made him different at, I guess he's a little bit over 300 pounds as opposed to Big John Atkins, 320 or 330 or whatever, playing now for the New England Patriots, still on the roster, by the way, as a free agent, and looks like he's going to make that roster. I like what you have Julian Rochester there. You also have some other people. I mean, Jordan Davis, the freshman, is huge, but came in. He's big and it's hard to play low.
Is that 6'8" guy that walked by?
Yes, he's huge.
Like 6'8", 3'7".
He wears 99 appropriately. He is so big.
Look like Shaquille O'Neal.
And their difficulty, of course, is like you would expect. Playing low at that position. But I like him as the big guy that you need there. But then you got Julian Rochester, you got Devontae Wyatt, you got a lot of these smaller, quicker guys that I think Georgia's going to try to play at that point of attack. And one last thing. The other thing, inside linebackers, where I have the concern, but I also not all that concerned outside linebacker. Between Walter Grant and DeAndre Walker, who are going to be your starters, who do a good job. But I've had a lot of questions here about Robert Beal, about Adam Anderson, about Azeez Ojulari. I mean, Georgia has recruited out the wazoo. Is that appropriate things? I don't know. Is the wazoo okay? They've recruited out of that.
Out to Washington State.
Out of at the outside linebacker position. So they're just loaded there.
I had my thought. Can I go with my thought?
Yeah,
you would not let me interrupt.
Here's the thing: when you know.
You were going to lose your train of thought.
I'll lose my train of thought. I got to get it out.
Well, I can't remember. No, what was it? I'm trying to remember the name of that because we haven't heard Kirby talk about him. The 6'8", 375-pound guy is
Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis.
Yes,
Jordan Davis. So the thought struck me, and I don't know if there's a lot of guys that play video games here that played like the NCAA video game, football game.
Yeah.
Georgia's got two guys that are the kind of guys that you create on a video game.
Yeah.
And he's one of them. Everybody does that where everybody creates your own player and you make them really, really, really big, like bigger than everybody else.
Yeah.
And you laugh and go, ha, ha, ha,
Yeah.
this guy's bigger. And then James Cook, who is just faster and off the charts quick.
You threw me a curve. You put a James Cook move on me there because I thought you were going to go with either Ben Cleveland or Isaiah Wilson.
No. Those
Isaiah
two guys.
Wilson is just giant.
Well, they're both giant, but they're not as big as that D line.
No, they're not.
And nobody's like James Cook is the guy like you have on. He's the 99. I mean, honestly, the way the guy moves, the speed. I can't wait, Chip, to see how Kirby Smart and the offensive coordinator Jim Chaney use him, and I don't know how much. I'm kind of torn. Do you throw him out there and show what you got, and get him some reps against Austin Peay and just scare the hell out of South Carolina, where they go, oh my God, who's this number 6? We got to watch him every time, and then they prepare for him, or do you kind of keep him under wraps a little bit?
Don't play him at all.
And South Carolina, what are they going to do with him and keep the mystery? So I'll be curious to see.
Have my bell, Kevin, so
I'll be curious to see how much and what Georgia does with James Cook, what the strategy is from Kirby Smart.
Let me address this guy, John Giagrande.
He says there's no way he's only 320.
Let me tell you about Jordan Davis. I can tell you exactly. So he's listed at 6'6", 320. I went and visited him for a Next Generation story. Next Generation is coming out during the season this year, y'all. And at that time, and we did a measuring thing, he said actually he had grown to 6'8", but that is including he's got one of those updos. It's a little bit high, but he is legitimately 6'7". He did exaggerate a little bit at 375 or 385 or whatever, but at that time he was 345, down from over 350, and Kirby said he wanted him at 320. So I think the reason he's listed at 6'6", 320,
I can tell.
He was 6'6" when they recruited him. He's grown since then, and 320 is where Kirby wants him at. I don't think he's going to get it.
I walked by him the other day, and I was just like, what? I mean, walking by these guys in the hallway. I mean, this is, it's been interesting, covering different teams, whether it was Michigan State or Tennessee, the last, 5, 8 years, whatever. And then going to cover the college football playoffs and the national championship game. The biggest difference you can tell between these championship caliber teams is at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
How big Alabama is, how big Georgia is, how big Oklahoma is. It reminds me back in the day when Pete Carroll had those great USC teams and they would walk by and you would just go, holy mother of goodness. USC was different. They were different. Georgia looks different. They are on par with Alabama. I said it before. I'll say it again. Georgia was the best team in college football last year. That doesn't mean you win the championship, Chip. There's a playoff, just like the college basketball tournament. One of the reasons I love college football is I think it's a better measure of what you do from the beginning to the end. Still disappointed that any team can get in the college football playoff without winning their league championship. There's something wrong with that to me.
I agree with you on that.
Georgia had to play an extra game. Georgia had to fly to Los Angeles and play Oklahoma, not some dead Clemson team. I got a problem with that. That wasn't fair in my book. I think everybody should play the same number of games. But back to my point, Georgia has the look of a championship team. Now, that doesn't mean they'll win a championship. They got to keep everybody healthy. They got to get the right draw. I mean, I'm telling you.
Big challenge early in the season.
I'll tell you what, Chip. If Georgia plays Clemson in New Orleans and Alabama goes out west, I'm not even sure if Alabama beats that Oklahoma team.
Right.
I'm not even sure that Alabama's got the offense to catch up to Oklahoma like Georgia did. So
actually
some of it is who you draw and where you play. If Georgia flies to New Orleans 45 minutes on an airplane instead of 4.5 hours across the country, those little things add up. up. So you got to have a little bit of luck, and you got to get the right draw too.
Yeah, I think so. We actually, guys, as you can tell here, and this is going to be so much fun this year. I really am looking forward to the Chip and Griff Show. It's going to be a lot of fun doing it in this format, Facebook Live, where we get to interact instead of just talking at you. And as you can tell, we could go on and on. We could go all night. We've actually been here all day, and we need to get home to our wives and dogs and
I don't have anybody at home.
lives. And
I can stay here.
I'm telling you, man, this dude. So see, he's it's like early in the show. I was thinking about, well, I got to introduce Mike Griffith again. He's only written 1,000 bylines since he's been here.
A lot to write about.
This dude is prolific, and right now, just relocating from Knoxville, he's all by himself in a furnished apartment in downtown Athens. A nice place, by the way. I really like your setup there.
Downtown Athens. Here's the problem with downtown Athens. There's so many good places to eat. I go back and I'm like, man, it's 9 o'clock. I want to try this place. I want to try that place. And I'm like, no, I don't need to eat. It's like, no, I know I don't need to eat.
Yeah.
But I want to eat because there's so many good places in downtown Athens. It's just like Michael Carvel told me it would be.
You know what I'm thinking? The option for sponsorships is so great out there. We could be doing this from a remote
Taco
location.
Stand.
Yeah.
Taco stand.
Hey, we're free to talk about them all.
About the Thai spoon. They got the green curry that kills. Zaxby's downtown.
Last resort. Let's do a
Did
live.
you know Barbaritos is headquartered here?
Absolutely.
I was
you
at
didn't know that?
Barbaritos downtown the other night.
David Weeks, the former Georgia player, former Georgia Center, is one of the founding members of that whole operation.
There's Fuzzy's Tacos too.
Yeah.
Fuzzy's Tacos. They got
that's right around the corner from
right
the
around
place.
the corner from me.
So we're gonna have fun, guys. We're gonna keep it fun. I mean, football's a serious game. We spend so much time grinding on this stuff. So Chip and Griff Show, it's going to be fun. We want you to participate. We'll see. Originally the way it was pitched to us, we're going to do it in like a lunch hour on Tuesdays. We're just getting it started. Our studio wasn't ready, so we decided to do it tonight. But hey, we'll do it whenever you want us to, or if a sponsor jumps on board, we'll do it whenever they say. Let us know. Give us your feedback. You can see our stuff all day long.
Does anybody else have any suggestions, by the way, for downtown places to eat?
We'll take it. We'll take it right. Oh gosh, you go on and on.
There's like a Cafe 5 or something. There's like a place called
5 Bar.
5 Bar. Haven't been there. Oh, and you told me about the bread. What is the Big Bakery bread?
That's what we've been there a couple of times. You put Big City Bread.
Big City Bread. It's another good one.
And Catch 22 is over there.
They got to get oatmeal on the menu.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a breakfast, you got to have oatmeal.
Yeah,
if that's the only thing that's missing.
That's true.
I love that place though. Been there twice.
So, like I said, we can go on. Hey, y'all, Shaquanda Baker's here. That's Roquan Smith's aunt. Hello, Shaquanda. She says not on Wednesday, so don't do it on
the
Wednesday.
The last resort, of course, Daniel. That's where Chip took
you. And I took you the first time when we were talking about the job.
Right across the street from me. It's another great place.
You can't go wrong. So anyway, for Mike Griffith, I'm Chip Towers. All the guys back in Athens, Brandon Adams, Jeff Sintel, you know them all. Y'all, we have so much coming at you on DawgNation. Just keep coming back. Get that app. Download the app. It's the best way to keep up. You'll get a notification every time we put up something new there. And between Mike and me and the other guys, that's about once an hour at least. So anyway, we will see you next time. We'll see you next Thursday for sure. And we'll let you know ahead of time what time we're going to come on. That's all for now, y'all. See you from Athens.
There you go.